Okay, we are live. Let me check.
Nice live. So yeah, thank you very much for joining everyone. Um, my name is Aliyu, and I'm going to be taking you through this workshop. Uh, it's going to be quite hands-on. All right, so we're going to be uh, doing a few interesting things, but uh, I'm going to expect you to follow along and let me know if there's any issues that you're having with any of the tools that we're going to be using. And again, this is just like almost like a starter, really, right? So I'm going to be sharing some ideas on things that you can do beyond this session. Projects that you can experiment with. So that's really the goal. The goal is to get you experimenting with different things. So here is just the starter. We're going to be doing mostly basic stuff. So um, before we get started, I'm going to be doing a brief overview. Um, for anyone that may be unfamiliar with um, some of the technologies, Gen AI technologies, trying to share my screen now. Or actually, I can just share this slide directly. Just 1 second. Okay. Is the slide visible now?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay, cool. So today we're going to be looking at uh, AI and agentic systems. Some of the risks around AI security and how to use it safely. And we're also going to be talking about the ethical side of things, how to use it as a professional, and also we're going to be touching a little bit on cloud-based versus local AI models, and we'll look at uh, AI assisted coding and workflow automation. And we're going to be using uh, Von Bank to be doing some live security testing. We're going to integrate AI tools into Burp Suite and Zap, and we're going to look at what does a workflow look like when when we're talking about AI powered security testing, vulnerability analysis, and stuff like that. We'll look at practical use cases in terms of AppSec, and we'll try to keep it as much as possible, relevant to the real world. So I'll be bringing it a little bit of my experience, into play as well. So before we even go into this, like I wanted to flag this difference, right? Because we use AI a lot. We use the word or the acronym AI, but most of the time when somebody says AI, nowadays they actually mean generative AI. I mean, AI has been part of our lives for so many years already, including in cybersecurity world, right? Um, Machine learning models have been part of our detection tools, behavior analysis, fraud detection, any kind of good malware, anti-malware solution has some form of AI integrated with it because you can't rely only on signatures. But today we're going to be focusing on generative AI powered by large language models. But I just wanted to highlight this difference. Um, so one of the benefits that we can, some of the benefits that we can get with AI assisted coding is it can speed up a lot of tasks. This is something I've seen like in my day to day. You're able to do more. You're able to do things a bit faster, and you're able to automate some of the repetitive tasks. And also, uh, if you know what you're doing, you can prompt the AI agent to do some of the things that would have taken you longer to do, and then allows you to focus on like higher value work. You can focus on like some of the strategic aspects as well, right? So this is not something that should replace your normal uh, thought process. It's not something that should replace your own intelligence, frankly, right? It's something that should augment you the same way or similar to how existing tools that we have augment our process. So again, when we talk about generative AI, there's some confusions around what is it? What is an AI model? What is an agent? What is a coding harness? There's just so many terminologies being thrown around, and given the umbrella term AI, right? So just briefly, the model is basically the uh, the generative AI itself is the large language model. It's been trained on billions and billions of parameters um, from the open internet. In some cases, some companies have been caught using pirated content or using content without permission. But by and large, it's based on a lot of content that's already been published, that's already been made by humans, right? So what it does is it takes an input, it analyzes it based on its training data, and it gives you an output, right? That's pretty much what it does. It's kind of like auto, what's it called? Predictive typing, when you're typing and it predicts the next word that you're about to type, based on language and based on your own like past activity. So this is kind of like that, but on steroids. ChatGPT came out, the world went crazy with in terms of like the capabilities of large language models. But what makes them very useful when it comes to any kind of technical work or application security work is when it's wrapped around, or when an agent is wrapped around the LLM, right? Look at coding, for example. Um, if you wanted to use ChatGPT to write code, you would have to write the code. You would have to prompt it in the ChatGPT UI, copy and paste the code into your environment, run it. If you're trying to troubleshoot any errors, you would have to go back and forth. But with these AI agents, the agent sits on like within the environment that it's being used, and it connects with the large language model. It also connects with the tools that the agents can use, and it kind of orchestrates, everything, everything around the use of AI. And you can also have like automations that are integrated with these agents and tools as well. An example of an agent would be something like Cloud Code, OpenAI Codex, Open Code, which is open source, Klein, also open source, or GitHub Copilot. So these are all uh, agents that you can use to write code. But at the same time, they're built with writing code in mind, but they can also be very useful when it comes to application security, because a lot of the things that we do in application security have to do with analyzing code, but also, you know, making requests, analyzing attack paths and things like that. So these are tools that are also useful when it comes to application security work. You can use it for code review, or you can use it to analyze findings. So, for instance, if you run an automated tool, you can use this to analyze the outputs. You can use it to orchestrate different scans, assist with reporting, and even with offensive security tasks as well. So let's also talk a little bit about the risk, right? I think one thing that you need to understand about uh, generative AI is that it's not deterministic, in the sense that you can run the same exact model, the same parameters, the same prompt uh, into an AI model, and it would come back with completely different results every time, right? Obviously, there are things that you can do to reduce this kind of variance in the outputs, but again, depending on your task, that can actually reduce the efficiency as well, or the effectiveness of the model, right? This is by design. Another thing you might have heard of as well is hallucination, right? You can have, because the LLM itself has no understanding or intelligence, or to know like what's actually right or wrong. It's literally just taking in inputs, and based on the training data, giving you an output. That's like an oversimplification, but that's pretty much how it works, right? So you can't really like you can't really force a deterministic output out of an LLM, which means it's kind of unpredictable in what it does, right? Which means that um, there's a security risk there, right? For instance, if you look at prompt injection, where even if an AI already has like a system prompt, and it's already been given lots of instructions on what it's supposed to do, what it's not supposed to do, you can still pretty much trick it into doing something that's against its own instructions, right? Or if you're too trusting of the output of the generative AI, that could also be a risk, because you can make decisions, wrong decisions, based on wrong information. Um, and then there's also like insecure AI integrations. For instance, if you integrate a tool with your AI agent that's malicious or compromised, that could be a big disaster as well. Um, there's also the concerns about if you're using cloud models, right? Uh, Depending on the organization that you're working for, you might be, or depending on the kind of work that you're doing, you might be violating some form of privacy guidance or compliance by using that AI model, because again, it's going into the cloud. You have no idea what they're doing with that information. Um, they could be using it to train their future AI models. Um, it could get leaked somewhere else. You don't really, you need to be careful with how you're using it. With personal projects, it's probably mostly fine. But if it's in a corporate environment, make sure that there's a proper policy around it, and you're following that policy. Usually they have different terms regarding terms and conditions regarding what they do with the data, depending on if it's a personal account or it's a corporate like enterprise account. So we need to make sure we're validating the outputs as generated by the AI. We have human supervision. When it's calling sensitive tools or running sensitive commands, make sure that you're actually reviewing it and not just pressing allow, right? uh, and just understand the limitations of the model, understand what it's good at and what it's not good at, right? And try to use tools and environments that you actually trust. A good resource that you can look at is the OWASP Gen AI security project. It's good to just like read through it. It's a good resource to understand the risks around uh, what's it called around generative AI. And yeah, I've mentioned some of this before. We have different use cases with threat modeling, vulnerability analysis, security testing, reports, generating custom scripts, and stuff like that. Um, and some of the tools that we want to use today is the Burp Suite MCP server. This one requires you to have Burp Pro, so most likely we'll focus on the Zap version because Zap is open, free and open source, right? So Zap also has an MCP server that they've developed that you can use with AI agents. Um, you can also integrate it with any CLI tool as well. So again, I talked a little bit about this, but make sure that when you're using any AI tools or anything you're doing, really, but I need to, I guess, emphasize it here as well. You need to make sure that you're respecting the scope and authorization, right? With AI models, there's part of the work that's going to be done in the back. You need to have like enough guardrails in place to make sure that no kind of exploitation is being done outside the scope of your whatever engagements that you're doing, right? So we're going to look at how to enforce this as well. Uh, Again, we talked about customer data and organization data. That still applies here, and validating issues, right? Like one thing that generative AI is always going to do is try to blow things out of proportion, right? If you ask it to do a particular task, um, if it finds something that even remotely looks like a potential vulnerability, it might report that as like it's a critical, right? Or it might be a true positive, but not something that's as bad as it claims it is, or it might have like the wrong reproduction steps. Like so many things can go wrong here, but just make sure that um you're actually validating the results yourself before reporting anything. Um so let's do some hands-on demonstration here. I'm going to share my screen. Give me 1 second. I need to. Are there any questions regarding uh anything that we've discussed so far?
No, no one has asked any question yet. I'll ask them to start dropping their questions if they have any.
All right, no worries. Cool. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay, cool. So one of the things that something we're going hands on now, right? So one of the things that I want you to do now is if you haven't already, create an open router account. You can use anyone actually, but open router is okay. Let me see if I can increase the size.
Yeah, someone said it's too tiny, like they can't see the.
Yeah, I'll try to increase the size now.
Okay.
I hope the text size is much better now.
I
Cool.
think it's
So
too. Well, let's hear from them. Too.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it should be better now, but let me know if it needs to be increased again.
Okay. Okay.
All right. So if you haven't created an open router account yet, you can create it now and get your API key. So um open router has a few free models that you can use. Um let's go to the pricing page. I'll show you. Yeah, so there's some 25 free models that you can use. Um, and then let's also install open code. I'll send the link. I'm trying to send a comment now, but it's not working. I'll send it to you privately, so maybe you can send it to them.
Okay.
So yeah, open router is it just allows you to use different AI models. You can sign up to Anthropic Cloud Code if you want, but this gives you more flexibility in terms of the AI models that you can that you can use, and it offers some free models as well. And then there's open code as well, which is a free and open source alternative to uh, Cloud Code, Codex, Copilot, whatever the case may be. So it allows you to. It's not locked down to any specific provider. So Cloud Code is kind of locked down to Anthropic, uh, but there's a way you can do it to use it to access any other models using the configuration file. But this one just straight up allows you to use uh, whatever you want to use, really, including Open Router. So you can download the terminal app, or you can download the desktop app, or the extensions on whatever coding tool that you're using. But I'm just going to. I think I already installed. I haven't actually. I'm just going to install the desktop version now. Has anybody made progress with uh, setting up Open Router and installing Open Code?
Okay, no comment yet. I'm going to let you know if anyone has yet.
Okay. All right. While Open Code is installing the desktop one, I already have the CLI version enabled, so I can actually open it in VS Code now.
Okay, so someone said they have Open Router installed and they're currently on Open Code here.
Okay. All right. Nice. Um. So I'm assuming a lot of you already have Zap installed, but if you don't, try to install it as well, because we'll be using the. Yeah, it's fine. You can just download the even the desktop, even the beta version of the desktop. It still works. I've used it before. Or you can use the terminal version as well. That's also fine. So if you have Zap installed, if you don't install it, but if you have it already installed, you can go to the manage add-ons screen and then install the MCP integration. If you just go to the marketplace and search MCP, you can select it and install it. I think I can't select it because I already installed it. Let me see. Actually, I haven't. I'll just restart Zap. Go back to add-ons. Yeah, the MCP integration has been installed. So if you haven't used any MCP tools before, MCP is called Model Context Protocol. It basically allows you to uh, expose certain functionalities from any tools to an AI agent. So it allows you to so if I go to open code, for instance, and start chatting, ask it to show me all the uh, available MCP servers. I'm not sure if any one of them has been enabled, but let's see. It can basically find, all the MCP servers that you have available. So none has been configured just yet, I think. Um, and it can grab information using the MCP server. You can run commands and things like that. So the Zap MCP server allows us to use different Zap functionality, like the history, the context, triggering a scan and stuff like that. So instead of coming into the UI or using the Docker to manually trigger a scan, you can just go straight into whatever AI tool you're using and call the Zap uh, MCP. So the Zap MCP is still in, I believe, alpha, but for the purposes of this demo, we can still use it. What's the progress? Has anyone got open code running yet? So another benefit of open code as well is that it has like free models uh, included as well. They won't be as powerful as any of the paid models, but you can definitely um, just start using it with the free models that they have included. So in the interest of time, I'm going to just get started, and if you get to any point where you need support, we can definitely go back. So the I'm going to open Vormbank in my VS Code, and I believe if I open code here, it's going to go straight to Vormbank. So one of the things that we can do here is um, we can analyze the code base, but instead of analyzing the entire code base, which would take a lot of the context, look at the we can look at a specific functionality within Vormbank. So let's say, analyze the transfer functionality. So it's showing us okay, so after installing open code, you can run open code within any folder. But to make it easy, if you have VS Code or any other application, you can just run it from the extension if you install the extension, which is what I've done. But do you have Zap installed? Does everybody have Zap installed? Okay, I'll send you the link to install Zap. Okay, it's not going from my end again. Okay. For those that already have Zap installed, try to install the Zap MCP server. And if you don't have Zap installed, try to install it. So yeah, again, I just sent like a simple prompt at the beginning to analyze the functionality within Bank for potential vulnerabilities. Analyze the transfer functionality, so giving it is something specific to look at instead of asking it to look at the entire code base, which sometimes that might be what you want to do. Um, so Justin Boss 4131, um are you using the default model that's come with open code or something else? And what kind of is it the installation that's taking time or something else? It might be like an internet issue. So you can usually with any of these agents, you can always go back to look at like the uh quote unquote thoughts process, um and see like how it's decided some of the things. So here it's found a critical vulnerability, which is negative amounts transaction or balance inversion. So basically, with Von Bank, and this is something I've tested with the actual Von Bank application, and I know it's true. But you can basically send a transfer with a negative balance, and sorry, you can send a transfer with a negative amount, and instead of deducting money, it would increase your balance because it's only checking uh what's it called, if your balance is greater than or equal to the amount, and then it would perform the transaction. It's found, it says it's found a race condition as well. And the good thing with uh installing the open code extension instead of just using the CLI is that you can open like the specific file, and it'll take you to the specific line of what it's found, instead of having to manually look for the file that it's looking at. So you can easily use that to like validate the findings as well. So it's found like a bunch of stuff, uh, which I think, because the transaction uh, function has so many things to find, even just within the transaction function, it's found a lot of things. Um, yeah, so that's one use case, right? You can use it to analyze specific parts of the code base, but you can also plug it into uh, tools like Sneak or SemGrep if you want to run like deterministic static analysis before running it with AI, because you still want to have that baseline of like uh predictable results before you add the AI analysis on top of it. So has anybody been able to install the Zap MCP server? Let me try and enable it from my end so that we can test it. just do a quick search because I can't find it here. Options, MCP integration. Okay. Yes. So I opened it as a folder in open code. But what I've done is you can do that, it will have the same impact. But what I've done is because I didn't have the desktop one installed yet, it was taking time, which is done now. I installed the I had the CLI version already installed. So I installed the extension in my VS Code, the open code extension in my VS Code, so that I could just open it here, and it would automatically, because I have one bank open in VS Code, it would automatically, assign it as the current folder. But if you've opened it as a project in open code, that also works. I think I can even do that now, since my open code has installed. Vonbank. So regardless of where you're opening it, it still remembers the context from you know what you've done elsewhere. Okay, so for the Zap MCP server, if you go to Zap and go to manage add-ons, I think I need to, is there a way to increase the icon sizes of this? I'm not sure. But it's this icon, and you can go to the marketplace to search for the MCP. And then you can install it from there. I've already installed it, so it's not showing up in the marketplace, it's showing up in installed. Um, if you want a text-based guide to installing and using the Zap MCP server, I'll share a link to that as well. Cool. So let's go back to Zap. Let's try and enable this. So I haven't done this before, by the way. I've done it with the Burp MCP server, but I've never used the Zap one. So we're learning together. So tools, was it tools or options? They said, yeah, still okay. Options, then MCP integration. So if we go to options, and search for MCP. Tools, options, MCP. MCP integration. So we can enable the MCP server. We can define which ports it uses. By default, it's set it to 8282. You can define a security key or generate a security key as well. And you can also say it should require the security key in the authorization header. However, you can also set it to secure only, so it rejects HTTP connections. I'm going to disable this and disable this as well, because I'm running all this locally within a virtual machine. So I don't see a need to what's it called? I don't see a need to do this authorization. But if you have Zap running as a service across multiple devices or across a network, then you definitely should use the security key. Right. So that's why I've disabled it. So now let's see, how do we add an MCP server to OpenCode? So there's an OpenCode config file, and then under MCP you can add the server. OpenCode.json. See. You know what? I'll try just okay, I think I opened it in the desktop version. So let's use that. Uh you can try just using the AI model itself to add an MCP server. See if that works. What system are you using? Are you using Windows or Linux or Mac OS? Yeah, you do need to install Java. Sorry about that. I'm using Kali Linux in a virtual machine, so it already comes with Zap installed. So yeah, if you're using Ubuntu, then yeah, installing Java should be straightforward, I think. If you can search for how to install uh, Java in Ubuntu. I think it was 8282, right? Yes. So now it's asking me for permission because it's accessing a file outside the project's directory. So this is one of the security features of these AI models. I would say allow once because I don't want it accessing this file, uh, without my permission. For those of you that already have Zap installed, have you been able to add the MCP server? So here we can analyze the changes that it's made as well, which is just added uh, the Zap MCP server here, which is a local host server, and then that's it. So let's go back to Zap now. So before you start using the Zap MCP server to do all sorts of scans, one of the things that you can do is that is definitely recommended is to run like some kind of reconnaissance, right? So just because there's AI involved doesn't mean you can skip steps. The reconnaissance and like gathering of context is still very important. So let's run Vonbank locally, which we're already in open code, so why not? By the way, if you haven't joined yet, I'd recommend joining the TAN uh, WhatsApp community. Lots of good stuff happening there. Um, More sessions that the TAN team is going to be organizing as well. So we can also continue the conversation there, right? Um, if there's anything that we were not able to touch within the 2 hours that we have today. So we've been able to run uh, Von Bank by just typing run Von Bank, even though the installation steps are actually quite straightforward. Uh, we can go to the application here, you know, uh, always use that dark mode. And we can also go to the API documentation, which is also very, very important. So one of the things that we would do is provide the API documentation to the model. But in terms of reconnaissance, you would still do some manual exploration. So localhost 5000 to launch the browser. So here using Zap, this is like the inbuilt browser within Zap that automatically routes all your requests to the Zap software, right? So you can come here and explore the targets. Actually, while we are doing that, let's edit the context to include our scope. So we can include our scope to say, uh, local hosts 5000, and I'm not sure if which where the API is, which ports the API is using, but I think I can just try to log in now. So it's made a get request to log in. Okay, it's the same port. So uh, if we go back to this context, include uh, localhost 5000 dot star, it would include everything here in the context. Very important because you don't want to be doing anything that's outside of scope. So you can just use this to define, what the scope is. And what you also need to do is like use as many of the functionality, use every single functionality so that it can generate uh, an accurate map of the targets. Without this, you might be missing some functionality that has like, very important vulnerabilities to try and exploit. So we're going to create an account. Um, Created an account, we've logged in. We'll also try to like use as many functionalities as possible. Uh, Update the bio, do some transfer, loan requests, uh, create a virtual card, bill payments, So I think we've pretty much used all the available functionality within the user dashboard, except the chatbot. For now, we're going to just ignore the chatbot because that's a different thing entirely. So now we will go back to Zap. It should have built a pretty good picture of of the targets. All the requests that are being sent to the backend, transactions, and even if you have like the API specification, it's not enough all the time because there might be some requests that are not properly documented, which is could be a potentially really good target to exploit. So now that we have this, let's go back to open code and ask it to do some analysis. So we're asking it to analyze the targets using the API documentation, which is available here, and the Zap history, which is going to use the MCP server to request from Zap. We can also ask it to create a testing plan for let's say security testing plan. So what we're doing here is we're just using the raw uh, agent prompt, to do our activities. If we wanted, we could also create we could create custom skills that would kind of have much more details and much more guidelines in terms of what it should do, what it should do in each scenario and stuff. But before doing that, I would recommend, exploring uh multiple AI tools, just doing it, as without so much like additional prompting. See what it does right, see what it does wrong. Like over time, you're going to build up more knowledge that you can then use to create your own custom skills and tools and things like that. So it's been able to fetch the Zap history. No, it has not. Oh, it's only been able to get the Zap history summary, I think. Oh, okay. It got all the endpoints, I think. Yeah. So it's doing an analysis on the authentication endpoints, and it's telling us that there's we should test for Buppler or mass assignments, which is very valid. We should test for SQL injection. Uh, so it's done something I didn't ask it to do. It's looked at the Zap sites tree, which is good. It's looked at the OpenAPI specification, which I asked it to do, but it's also looked at the alerts that Zap has raised. So if we go back to Zap and look at alerts, we'll see that it's reported some interesting findings here that can be used by the agent uh to explore further. So it's using that information uh as well. And then at the same time we have the code here. So it's looking at the source code as well. So it's gathered all that context and it's saying that these are the uh, vulnerabilities that we should check, that we should test for. So one thing that I'm not sure the Zap, uh, so the Zap thing doesn't allow us to make custom requests. I don't think. Let's look at the tools. Info, create context, start spider, stop spider, start active scan, which is fine. But what we want to do is we want to give open code the power to run specific tests. To do that, we need it to be able to send requests, right? So I'm just going to ask it to do it. Most likely, it's going to use curl in the background. So let's ask it to test this registration endpoints for mass assignments or BOPLA. So another thing that makes this interesting is that it knows about this is admin thing because it's looked at the uh most likely it's either looked at the response from the API history, or it's looked at uh the schema within the API specification. But no, it's not documented here. So most likely it's looked at the history. So that's why you can only rely on the documentation. Usually what's the thing that's missing from the documentation is uh super valuable when it comes to testing. So we'll just ask it to test the registration endpoint for mass assignment uh slash BOPLA and see what it comes up with. By the way, how's it going? Like where have you guys been able to get to? Do you need any support? Or are you just spectating at this point? Okay, so we have a true finding. So basically it's gone and did uh call requests to the registration endpoint uh and setting this is admin uh parameter, and it's analyzed the response to say that okay it's actually true. So using this we can definitely validate you know that this is a correct correct finding. It's also tested with like overriding the starting balance for the account as well successfully. And yeah, basically everything here works according to the AI. If you want to verify further for yourself, we can also go back to Zap, go to this registration endpoint, send it to the requester tab, and then modify this request uh to say something else. Where is it? This is not the request I'm looking for. This is get. So the post request is username and password. Send to requester. So let's say Tanman1 is admin is equal to true. So it's coming back with a 401. Oh, sorry. It's I went to log in instead of register. So we register, we can see that it worked out, and it's validated to us that the vulnerability is present. So um, we've been able to exploit Buppler within, like, basically the AI agent was able to exploit Buppler, and it's giving us enough information that we can use to like validate the vulnerability ourselves. But again, we've asked it to look at, uh, we've done the initial reconnaissance. We asked it to look at potential vulnerabilities to test for, and then we asked it to test this specific one. One thing that can also be done is ask it to like carry out the entire testing plan, and it will go like step by step exploiting these vulnerabilities and testing it out. Um, I haven't gotten any feedback. How is it going? Do we have like uh any challenges? Has anyone been able to do any tests? Okay, while we're waiting for some feedback, um, I'll ask it to continue the testing. So if you're not able to set up uh, Zap successfully, you can skip that part for now and just uh, use the API specification and ask it to do the same thing. Create a testing plan. So as an example, one of the things that it's trying to test for is uh, JWT bypass, and the way it essentially does this is like it's writing um it's writing Python scripts on the fly to run like JWT commands to in terms of like manipulating tokens, generating tokens and stuff like that, which is interesting. So it's completed the tests and it's created like a results summary. But I'm also going to ask it to generate like a full report so that we understand like what did they actually test, what did they try, reproduction steps and everything. So Justin, no, I didn't use a security. Let me go back to this app. I'll show you what I did. So under tools and options and MCP integration, I removed this requirement to require a security key because I'm running this in a virtual machine locally on my device, right? There's no network connectivity to this Zap instance outside of this VM. So for that purpose, I don't need the security key. So Justin, what's the update from your end? Have you been able to set it up now? Cool. So now we have our security test reports um, that it's generated. We can open the file. I think in VS Code you can also open it in like preview mode as well. Uh, but I don't think Open Code has that right now. Yeah, I can't open the Markdown file in preview mode, but that's fine. We can. Right. So my first prompt to open code was to add the MCP to add the Zap MCP server running on port 8082, and it looked for the open code configuration file and added the Zap MCP server configuration, uh, so that you can use the Zap MCP server with open code. Yeah, so it's going to ask you for permission because it's accessing a file that's outside the project. So if you're comfortable with the command or the file that it's about to access, then you can allow it. I'm guessing it's asking you to access this file uh, or this folder, which is what you asked it to do. So if that's what it's doing, you can allow it. Nice. So to test the Actually, what did I do next? Yeah, so next thing I did was ask it to run Vormbank so that we can access Vormbank locally. But if you can't run Vormbank locally, maybe due to limited resources or whatever, maybe you don't have Docker installed or something, you can use vormbank.org, which is a hosted version of Vormbank. But I'm using it locally. Um, if you want to use Vormbank without running it locally, you can just go to vormbank.org. So that's your choice. What did you run that's thinking? Oh, do you have Docker? Okay. So yeah, maybe it might be taking a while due to it's having to, because it had to like pull the Docker images. Can is it showing you like what it's doing, or is it just thinking? So it will pull the Docker images and run them and then verify if it's running. But if that's taking too long, then maybe just use the hosted version. Going to ask it to create an HTML report so that to make it a bit more friendly to look at. Cool. Let me know when that's done, Justin. So if you're able to run it locally or access the hosted version, then the next step is to add it to your Zap context. Yeah, add it to your Zap context and then do like a manual explore with the Zap inbuilt browser so that you can build like a target tree of the target, build up the HTTP history. Yeah, that's so yeah, what next is to run manual explore within Zap. So when you run where to close this and start again. When you run manual explore within Zap, you can provide it with like the URL that you wanted to access, then uh, explore. Try to use as much of the functionality as possible so that Zap can build like a good picture of the target. So let me know when you've done that so that we can take you to the next step. So are you running Zap in a container, or is the AI hallucinating? I thought you were using the Zap UI. Are you? How did you install Zap? Oh, I see. So I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with uh, Snap. Maybe the Snap installation doesn't allow you to run it. So one, I think you should skip Zap for now and just use the API documentation for the testing plan. So I've sent you a prompt. The prompt uh without using Zap history. Okay, that means you have Vonbank running, don't you, in Docker? Okay, yeah, then just do it um without Zap. So okay, we're going to take a short 5 minute break. Um, come back at 3:35 GMT. GMT plus one, and uh, we're going to look at the reports that's been generated, and then talk about other potential use cases um, that you can experiment with. So you can use this break to catch up if you haven't gotten to this stage yet. Um, Again, what we've just done so far is added the Zap MCP server, did the manual explore. But if you don't have Zap running, you can skip the manual explore and just run, uh, create a testing plan using the API documentation without the Zap history. And then you can ask it to test any specific uh, endpoint, or you can just ask it to run the entire uh, testing plan. So, yeah, we'll reconvene in 5 minutes. Okay, we're back from our short break. Um, Justin, before we went on break, you were trying to run the testing plan, right? How's that going? Okay, is it working out fine? I think that should be quick. That should be quite fast. Okay, were you able to troubleshoot that then? Is it working now? Okay, yeah, nice. So you're almost where I'm at. So you can ask it to run a specific test. You can choose anyone, or you can just ask it to run the entire test plan. So what I did was I asked it to run this Bubbler check first, and then I asked it to go ahead and do the entire thing. But I think you can just ask it to do the entire test. So I've asked it to generate a HTML report from for the tests, and yeah, this is the report. Yeah, again, you can manually validate any of the findings by uh using Zap to run those requests again. It's uh it's something that you can easily validate because it's showing you how it arrived at that conclusion, right? So with this bubbler, it's showing us the specific request that it used. You can copy the raw HTTP request and paste it into the requester tab in where's requester? Yeah, in the requester tab in Zap. Yeah, here we go. Okay, this is not an exact. I think it's not in the format as Zap expects. Um, oh, I see. Yeah, you can try out any of the exploits to manually verify it by yourself, which is what you should be doing anyway. And Yes, it can. So with this bubbler, for instance, the exploit or POC is basically like adding these values to the request. That's pretty much it. If it was a different type of vulnerability, for instance, like this SQL injection, the POC is just this request, right? So it can run requests using curl as well. If we're using the burp MCP server, that also allows it to run requests, and you can see the history as well. So yeah, it can, depending on the type of what kind of permissions denied are you getting. Can you send more details about the error you're getting, Justin? So something interesting that it's done here, it's chaining multiple vulnerabilities, right? It's able to use the fact that there's a weak JWT secrets and an SSRF vulnerability to extract the secrets. So there's an internal endpoint for secrets, but it's reachable through the upload profile picture URL by forging a request and getting the secrets. By forging a request to this endpoint through here, it's able to get the secrets and then uh, use the secret to take over any account pretty much. So really interesting. How's it going, Justin? Another thing that interesting that the agents did is it's attempted prompt injection through the AI agents that the application has, and it's able to use it to uh, get sensitive information that's not supposed to be able to get. So we're about 15 minutes to time. I'm going to stop this particular demo and um, go back to the slides. But before I do that, there are lots of other tools that you can integrate, right? There is something called Socket, which basically does like secure composition analysis, finds out if you have the vulnerable dependencies and stuff. And they have a free MCP server that you can add as well to analyze any of the packages that you have. Um, so yeah, it's quite straightforward to install, and you can use it to check uh, the security of any of the AI dependencies that you have. There's also Ghost Security, which is another really interesting tool that by default it works with it's designed to work with Cloud Code, but I'm pretty sure there's a way to make it work with open code. It could be another project you can experiment with. So it basically combines multiple tools. So it has this secret scanner that's like a real like a binary that runs a deterministic secret scan. Also has a dependency scanner as well. Uh, from my experience, I still prefer using like Snake or Socket for the secret scanning. So if you're building a workflow that uses Ghost Security, for instance, you can swap out any of these tools. I think the most impressive part of it is the fact that uh, it has like different skills and tools, and it has uh, an orchestration skill as well that can orchestrate an entire security review. So this is an interesting one to check out uh, and test as well. There's also bug trace AI. I think I okay. It's bugtraceai.com, but it's been archived. So there's a new version of it that's been developed. But yeah, this is another like of this is an offensive security testing uh tool that you can try out. There's so many tools out there that I definitely want to encourage you to try. But the most important thing is like try them out in a safe environment. Like check out uh the code, make sure that it's actually an actual legit project, right? Check the reputation, uh see if like there's like any legitimate websites that talk about the project. Don't just run whatever unless you're running it in a sandbox. Yes, definitely interesting trying out all these different tools, seeing how they work, seeing their capabilities. The more of them you test, I think the better you'll be able to understand the the capabilities and what's possible, and then you can from there you can start using your creativity to be able to do more. So another thing you can do is with something like open code or cloud code or anything, any of these agentic applications, they can actually run like it doesn't you don't have to link it with an MCP server. If you have a tool that's just a command line tool, you can still run them. These tools have like terminal access that they can use to run some of these tools. So you can definitely try out, see how that works. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and go back to the rest of the slides. Thanks. So yeah, we've done some hands-on demonstration. Um, it didn't go perfectly, but I think there's some lessons that we can take from there for our next um, workshop or demo, and we've been able to see like how powerful this kind of tool is when it comes to automating tasks and or doing like specific tests. Like if you know what to look out for, you can guide the tool into uh, doing some of the heavy lifting. And yeah, these are just some ideas of some of the projects that you can test with. You can build like a threat modeling assistant that's relevant to a specific organization's environment. You can find a part of your workflow that's repetitive and automate it. You can test different agentic security tools, like I mentioned earlier. Um, at some point you can get to a point where you can build a Slack bot to automate an AppSec process. I think what matters at the end of the day is have some part of it has to be like based on deterministic tools, based on tools that have like repeatable outcomes. The the AI part of it is helpful with um, automating defined tasks, right? So if you have specific things that you want to do, it's also good with like generating ideas. With generated the test plan there with ideas of like different types of tests or attacks that we can run on different endpoints. Um, so there's lots that you can do with it, but the more you test it out, the more you'll be able to do because you can try out different things. So yeah, um, it shouldn't uh you shouldn't end up in a situation where you're just asking AI to do stuff without understanding what's going on in the background, right? You need to still have that background understanding, uh, but it shouldn't replace your thinking, right? It should still be the one in control and guiding the tool instead of it driving everything, right? So you still and we mentioned this earlier as well. You still need to validate your findings. You still need to provide it with context. Like it can only be as good as the context that you provide it. So try to provide it with as much context as possible, and make sure you're still reviewing it. Don't go into YOLO mode and allow it to do whatever it wants. Um, Try to make sure you're checking out everything that's doing and approving any kind of sensitive actions. So yeah, if you have any questions, uh, feel free to ask before we close out the session. Yeah, thanks, Justin. I think you've been the most active um, participant here. Abigail, I don't know. I think someone asked for the WhatsApp link. I don't know if you can provide that, or if maybe the people that registered, if they can get the link, that would be nice. So yes, that's one of the most sensitive or most dangerous parts of these agentic AI tools. The fact that it can do things on your machine, and the decisions on like uh what to do sometimes is created by the AI. The commands that it runs are created by the LLM as well. So if it makes a mistake, or if it gets some kind of indirect prompt injection, then a lot of bad things could happen. That's why you need to review the command and make sure you're comfortable with it. Like, would you be running that command on your computer if you were the one? That's why it still requires that kind of approval. So yeah, it's definitely one to watch out for, but it's yes, you should be able to go back to any of the sessions and see everything, audit everything that it's done. What types of security findings does AI consistently miss? So um, it depends, right? You can miss stuff when it doesn't have context of a particular thing, or it can miss maybe like very. The funny thing is that there are things that it would find that a human might not necessarily not be able to find, but not a human might not think about uh, all the different possibilities, right? But it's also the same thing. Like the LLM might just miss something because it's an LLM, because uh, it's non-deterministic. It doesn't guarantee the same output every time. So there might be some things that will get missed in a particular uh, run, right? It just depends on the context that's been given, the information available to it at a given point in time. But it also depends on just pure vibes sometimes. Um, so it's not everything that like the one that we just did with Von Bank is very obvious in the sense that like Von Bank is a deliberately vulnerable application, right? So there's lots of obvious vulnerabilities there. But if it was like a real enterprise application, for instance, you'll definitely need a lot more guidance, right? So if you're asking me to just like find all the vulnerabilities in this application, make no mistakes, of course it's not going to be as successful as if you guided it in the right direction, provided the right contexts, and do the thinking yourself, right? And I think the reconnaissance and the testing plan phase are also very important because if you ask it to just start doing the testing, there's no plan, there's no background context about the application. It's just going to be all over the place. But if you do the reconnaissance and you ask it to create a testing plan, it would then look at each of the endpoints and each of the the targets that has already been mapped out, and then try to come up with potential uh, vulnerabilities to test for, right? So with that, you can then start executing the plan, and then there will be a systematic way of looking at it, right? Is the knowledge of using AI tools in a security context now required for modern AppSec rules? I would say it's definitely something you should be aware of because organizations are adopting AI for better or for worse. It's the reality that we are in right now, and um, part of your role as an AppSec engineer will most likely entail how to secure the AI systems that the rest of the organization is using. You know, if the developers are using Claude Code to generate code that's been added to production, how do you make sure that the code that is generating uh, does not contain vulnerabilities, or how do you make sure that they're not adding malicious MCP servers or malicious tools to their AI agents? So that's one part of it. The other part of it is um, yes, the knowledge about AI and knowledge of using AI tools in security context will be helpful because you can then start to work more efficiently in terms of automating some of these tasks, right? If we wanted to test for, if you even want to create like a testing plan, for example, it would take you a lot longer if you were doing it yourself. But with AI assisted process, it allows you to do it much faster. So yeah, I think the conversation is definitely helpful. I think AI is overhyped a lot. Um, and the business model currently that a lot of companies are using might not be sustainable. Like the prices that a lot of people are paying right now is not the actual cost that is costing the companies. there are a lot of things that will self-correct in a few years' time. It might be a bubble, whatever the case may be, but the technology itself is transformative in the sense that it's going to be relevant in some way, shape, or form. So, as an AppSec engineer, it's definitely something you should be aware of, and it's something that you should experiment with, see how it works, um, understand the dangers and how to secure it, so that you can apply it, wherever the future takes us, because it's still it's still in the early stages. Thank you for all the questions. I don't see any other questions. Yeah, I think that's it for me. Abigail, do you have anything to add before we close?
Oh, no, I don't know. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Yeah.
All right,
So
thank you
I'm
very
going to
much.
end this stream here.
All right.